Welcome back, and to shed more light on the national dialogue and specifically on the economic sessions that started on Tuesday, we're delighted to be joined over the phone by Dr. Sahar Damaty, economic expert. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Dr. Damaty, the national dialogue held on Tuesday the first session of its economic track under the title Social Protection Programs. Would you tell us more about this segment and the different sections and topics of discussion?
Okay, I believe that the major topic of discussions were around alleviating the suffering of citizens in light of the global crisis, economic global crisis, and especially the impact on inflation when it comes to locally here. And I believe they have taken a number of good measures, the first of which was increasing the budget for support and social protections a number of times. And the latest of which would be an increase of around 49%, hence increasing from the previous budget of approximately 360 billion to become around 530 billion. So this was a substantial increase in the budget. I think another point that was really mentioned, and it's quite important, was the impact of inflation and its impact on preserving the consumption patterns of the different clusters in the society.
Yes.
So that was another very important one. It's not the issue of economic growth only that we have to concentrate on, rather preservation of the consumption patterns. Another issue is permanent programs for social protection. We have solidarity, we have dignity and others, and the repercussions still show that there are negative impacts on a number of citizens and families continuously. Hence, this has to take much more attention during the next period. Again and again, the continuous concentration on the economic conditions at all levels, negative effects on the various economies in Egypt, on the various low-income brackets people in the society, and the importance of the social protection system in Egypt is to be enhanced with a set of initiatives in order to further expand and to decrease the economic challenges facing the population currently. And from this side, I mean, we started to talk about a number of what we call highly affected population. For instance, you have to support regular workers.
Yes.
Because around 70%, as we say, from our workforce in Egypt are working in unofficial sectors. And you cannot support them unless those sectors become registered to be able to support their regular staff there, or their regular workers there. So this is one part that really took a lot of discussion. And the end of it, I think, was quite good because they reach a conclusion to establish a permanent and independent fund, which is important to secure insurance and pensions for irregular workers. Of course, coming along with some financing and tax exemptions, that was another part that was discussed. Another part I believe also was quite important was empowering a marginalized group, among which are women. Women constitute approximately 50% of the population, and hence a law is required to be drafted in order to enable the woman to have an equal chance of assuming leadership position as men. That was, I think, an important point discussed during the dialogue. Another one was regarding the pension years. They actually requested that some of the pensioners must have privilege when it comes to public transportation. These people have worked all their life and they can have a discount in the transportation costs, in addition, of course, to the hospitalization. But as we know, there has been already an 8 billion allocated by the government for free health for the population, especially the marginalized group. So I believe this was another good point that was discussed. Another one, or a last one, maybe I can, two other points. The youth. You have 60% of our population among the youth. And what you need to do is to empower them, to provide them with technical education, to increase their capabilities. The schools are not the only place, but rather to enable them to become trained labor, to become, and I want to say one thing here, that by looking at the labor costs relative to the rest of the world, you'll find that labor costs in Egypt is cheapest.
Yes.
And this could be a very, very good advantage for FDIs, for exporters, to come and benefit from cheap labor. They cannot find such labor in China, for instance. So they can find trainable, good labor at cheap levels, and this could enhance our exportation and also be a good attraction for FDI, or what you call good investment. So that's another point. I think the last issue that has taken also some discussion in the national dialogue was regarding the disabled groups and how to protect them, how to provide them with health, and how to provide them with a working environment. Because there are laws, yes, but you need to enforce those laws to enable the disabled people to be able to work and to produce and so on. Mm-hmm. So I believe these were like very important issues, mm-hmm, covering most of the segments in our society, and definitely it will lead to good improvements.
Right. Well, Dr. Damaty, you mentioned women empowerment, youth empowerment as the main, among the main topics discussed during the sessions. What are the main programs that are now being held and that will be planned for the future in order to further empower women and youth?
I'll tell you something. For instance, I believe that first of all we need to reach out for these people and find them. We have very strong system of NGOs in the country to reach out for those needy people, especially among women and youth. So I believe that we have to strengthen the strong or put some kind of a very strong cooperation between NGOs and the government in order to develop all the schemes available at the time being to reach those segments. Currently, when it comes for women empowerment, as you were asking, there are special financial packages for women, and a lot of these are offered by different banks. Multinational organizations like IFC, they do provide also special packages for women to empower them to create their own business. This is done whether through banks, through NGOs, through different groups. So there is women empowerment. For the youth, you have a number of trainable sessions and for different types of jobs under different industry schemes. So I think we need to work further on this issue.
Right. Well, Dr. Damaty, also supporting irregular workers was among the significant topics discussed at the sessions yesterday.
Yeah.
Well, tell me or shed more light on the measures and recommendations proposed to boost irregular workers in Egypt.
I think the most important one, as I mentioned, establishing the permanent and independent funds. which would secure not only insurance, but also pensions for those irregular workers. If you recall, a few years ago, we had something called the Aman certificates for irregular workers. And this was implemented by most of the primarily Bank Minister, National Bank, a number of banks in Egypt. So I believe this is also has been discussed and put on the table yesterday. But I really favor very much, I agree very much with establishing a fund for the irregular worker. In addition to that, there has been a lot of discussion regarding, it's quite important to register to include financing and tax exemptions for those irregular workers. If most of these are working in the unofficial sector, how can you reach them? So there has to be some programs in place to enhance the unofficial sector, to register, accordingly enabling the youth to benefit from financing and tax exemption packages. And these packages must support workshops and unregistered small factories to further integrate what we call the unofficial workforce into the official workforce.
Yes.
So this is a core in the discussion.
Right. Well, I would like to thank you very much, Dr. Sahar Damaty, economic expert. Many thanks for your insight. And dear viewers, with this we come to the end of this edition of Cairo Local Time. Many thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the top stories that will be coming up in a moment.